the need for control is really a well-intended strategy. The need for control is really a positive intention. It's just leads to a very limited life, right? And so often we end up trying to control our life. And in an effort to control our life, we don't realize we're limiting our life. And we impose our limited ego's idea on how we think life should be and who we think we should be and how we think a relationship should be and how we think things should unfold. But because it's coming from the ego, we're not able to see the whole picture of what is seeking to happen. It's like, it should be this way. It should be that way. Life's got to be this way, rather than saying, what is life showing me? What is life revealing to me? And so part of surrender is a letting go to allow life to show us and to become a follower, obedient, to allow this intelligence that has been around for billions of years to guide us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Flow Over Fear. I'm so glad you're here today because we're going to talk about a subject that's near and dear to me and to a lot of us. And my guest is an expert on this subject. And I'm really glad that I was able to get connected with Kute Blackson. He is a beloved inspirational speaker and transformational teacher. He speaks at countless events he organizes around the world, as well as outside events, including A-Fest, the Young Presidents Organization, and Entrepreneurs Organization. He is a member of the Transformational Leadership Council, a select group of 100 of the world's foremost authorities in the personal development industry. He's the winner of the 2019 Unity New Thought Walden Award, and he's widely considered a next generation leader in the field of personal development. And let me tell you, this guy's on a rocket ship with regard to his content. It's amazing. His mission is simple: to awaken and inspire people across the planet to access inner freedom, live authentically, and fulfill their true life's purpose. Nice to meet you, Kute. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for being here, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this idea that, like, when I'm looking through your content, it says that when you were 8 years old, you were already speaking in front of 3,000 people, which just, it blows my mind. And when we talk about getting over some fears, I couldn't imagine being an 8-year-old in front of that large of an audience. Can you kind of walk us through what got you there and how you got on stage?
Yeah, look, I was actually more interested in just playing soccer and being a kid. And my childhood was a bit unusual, but I thought it was normal. I thought everybody had my childhood. As a kid, like, my first memories as a young boy was being lost in the crowd and seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor. She picks up the gravel, the sand that this man walks on, wipes it on her face, and stands up. We could call that a miracle. And so week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see, deaf people hear, people stand up out of wheelchairs. The same man whose hand she picked up would look at a person in a wheelchair and say, stand up. And they would stand up. Or somebody would come in with crutches and he would say, throw your crutches away and be healed. And they would be healed. And so this man was my father. And so I grew up in this kind of mystical environment with some would say a miracle. They called him a miracle man of Africa. My father's from Ghana, West Africa, built 300 churches in Ghana, hundreds of thousands of people, built a huge church in London, about 4,000 to 5,000 people every Sunday. And this is how I grew up. My mother's Japanese, and so she was Buddhist. So I grew up with this very diverse, eclectic background. And so when I was age 8, one day, suddenly my father announces to the congregation, my son is going to give the sermon. He's going to speak. And so they threw me on stage. I was sleeping on the front row. And I'm not sure what happened, but words began to come out of my mouth and something emerged that was bigger than myself, so to speak. And that began my journey with speaking. And from 8 to 14, I would speak 2, 3, every 2 months, every 6 weeks, just depending, whenever my dad felt, let's throw the kid on stage. And when I was 14, I was actually ordained as a minister. And that's when I was, again, unbeknownst to me, my father basically announced to everybody that my son is taking over my ministry. He's going to be my successor. And everybody was happy but me.
Because no pressure, right?
No pressure,
Right.
I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't feel that it was through the structure of a church or the structure of religion. But I think at 14, I think like many of us, I allowed fear to limit me and hijack my voice and my freedom. And so at 14, I went along with it and tried to fit myself into a box of what I thought the world wanted me to be, my father wanted me to be, to get love, validation, approval, and becoming who I thought he wanted me to be. And so as a young boy, I got ordained. And for 4 years, just went through this inner turmoil of, to the world, being of service and making a difference, but inside feeling and knowing that something wasn't quite aligned, something wasn't quite right, but didn't have the courage to speak it. And so when I was 18, a very pivotal moment in my life, I looked into my future. I decided to not go to university. And as I looked into my future, I saw I had a choice to make. Either I could take the expected path and take over my father's organization, take over his church. But as I looked into my future, I saw that if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have myself, if I didn't have my integrity, what kind of success is that if I don't have myself? And so I felt the pain of that so deeply. That's when I knew what I had to do. And so at the same time, I felt this profound calling in my soul to go to America. Something was pulling me, go to America and go into this field of personal growth. And from 8 to 18, I also became very obsessed with trying to understand life and the purpose of life, the meaning of life. Who am I? Why am I here? What's the purpose? And where do we go? And what is this whole thing about? And just trying to understand this whole human experience. And so as a young boy, I would sneak into my father's office. And this is where you could say also my personal growth journey began. I sneak into my father's office and I would take books off of his bookshelf. And he had everybody from Eastern mystics like Krishnamurti to Western mystics like folks like Gurdjieff and Ouspensky to Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson. And so this became my obsession. And so from 8 to 18, I think I read 800 books, just trying to understand the nature of the human experience. And so, my soul guided me to come to America, come to Los Angeles specifically, because this is where all of the authors, all of the self-help gurus lived. And I wanted to come here and meet them and study with them and go into this field. And, sometimes I think what your soul guides you to do doesn't always make sense to your mind. What your soul guides you to do isn't always logical. What your soul guides you to do isn't always convenient. But I really believe that if and when you follow your soul, if and when you listen to your soul, if you will always be guided in the right direction, in the right place, with the right people, doing the right thing, even though the route that you take may not be the one that you most expect or could have planned. And so I have just endeavored to follow my soul without compromise throughout my entire life, even when it's scary, even when I had no clue. And that's been a key for me. And so at 18, I had the conversation with my father, just took a leap into off the cliff, so to speak. And my father and we didn't speak for about 2 years, which was very difficult. But that began a whole nother journey of surrender. And I ended up winning a green card in the green card lottery that enabled me to come to the US with 2 suitcases, $800 in my pocket, and just following a dream in Los Angeles, the dream of going into self-help. So I went and found authors and teachers and mentors and, all the folks I read about, studied with some of them, learned from some of them. Long story short, again, a couple of years later, ended up traveling to India. It was my time in India that really cracked me open to a whole nother level of reality. And that's when I came back and began working with people and coaching people as a young man.
That's amazing, and there's a lot to unpack on all of that, because I know that you've touched on a lot of the inherent fears that many of us have, like the fear of maybe not of people pleasing, especially when it comes to our parents, and digging into that, and then surrender, which is kind of your primary topic. But I want to kind of touch on this idea of the calling in your soul, and I want to know, what does that feel like? Because I know that there's a lot of people who have that inner conflict, that they feel like they're being pulled to something, but their mind might be saying, nope, nope, nope. How does that calling show up?
For me, the calling was an undeniable feeling. It was a tangible sense, a feeling, a sense. Something was like pulling me. And, sometimes it can appear as a still small voice. Sometimes it can appear as a sensation and a feeling. Sometimes it can appear as a loud voice. Sometimes I think the way the universe or your soul speaks to you, sometimes it can be very gentle and very subtle, but often we're not paying attention, and we're not observing the clues. Sometimes it's just that subtle sensation in your body that something doesn't quite feel right here. Sometimes it's the signs in the universe when all the things flow, or you hear a song on the radio that is speaking to exactly what you were saying, or somebody who has the exact answer to your question shows up and just randomly starts talking. And so I think if we just pay attention to the clues of life, pay attention to the signals in our body, pay attention to how we feel, the sensation of feeling, I think when we become still and quiet and attuned and pay attention, you will feel life flowing. You will feel the flow of life moving, like something's kind of moving me in this direction. You will feel the sense of things, but often we're just not paying attention. And so I think we have to pay attention and attune ourselves and become still. But we also have to want to listen to the guidance of our souls. Sometimes we keep ourselves so busy running around doing activity, chasing, seeking, because I think deep down we don't want to listen to the guidance of our souls, because deep down we're afraid of the truth that we're going to hear, of the guidance that our soul gives us. And we're afraid of that guidance, especially if that guidance tells us to do something that maybe we don't want to do. And so sometimes I think there's a part of us at the deepest level that knows everything, because at the deepest level we are connected to everything. But it can be scary to listen to the guidance of your soul sometimes, because it's not always convenient. It doesn't always make sense. Yeah. Sometimes the guidance of your soul will often arise from a deeper dimension of your being than your mind and your logic. And so often what you're guided to do will often not make sense to your mind, will often not make sense to your logic, because it's arising from a deeper, unconditioned dimension of your being. So it doesn't fit into your current mind's capacity to understand. It's bigger than that. It doesn't fit the known conditioning of what you have lived and experienced. It's beyond that. And so often it won't make sense. You won't know how you're going to do it. You're not meant to know how you're going to fulfill that thing. But what I had to learn to do, that I would invite people, and one of the ways we disconnect from it or talk ourselves out of listening to the guidance that we do receive, is we constantly try to analyze it and understand it and make sense of it. Because the ego mistakenly thinks, if I can understand this guidance, if I can make sense of this guidance, then I can be in control. Then I won't get hurt. Then I'm going to be safe. So we analyze, understand, and before you know it, we've talked ourselves out of the guidance that we kind of received. But in an effort to make sense of it, we've confused ourselves. And because we don't know what it means and where it's going to lead us, we don't take action. And so what I had to learn to do through trial and error and through the experience of life is, when I would feel a sensation like, this feels off, or call Adam. Why call Adam? I haven't spoken to Adam in years. Just text him. Or go to Miami. Why? The why kicks in, right? And so for me, it was giving up the need to understand what something means or what the guidance means, and simply being obedient and taking action. When I learned to I feel something, just do it. Feel something, do it. The gap between I don't need to understand and know where I'm going in order to get to exactly where I need to get to. Feel something, do it. Often things will tend to make sense after the fact. And it's after the fact that you will often be able to connect all the dots together and go, oh, I see why this needed to happen. But from the current ego's perspective, you may not be able to make sense of that in the guidance. And so I just invite people, just listen, don't question, just listen, follow, act. Life will give you feedback, course correct, follow, act. And that's kind of how I've lived.
That's great. So in terms of that idea of giving up the need to understand, is that the letting go? Is that the surrender that you talked about?
That's definitely an aspect of surrender. For me, part of surrender is allowing life to lead you, allowing life to show you. The challenge is, because often we are control freaks, control addicts, have a need to be in control of everything, which is really the ego strategy to try to keep us safe and protect us from getting hurt. The job of the ego is twofold: to keep you safe, to protect you from getting hurt, and to reinforce its existence. So we feel like if I can control life, control you, control how you perceive me, control my environment, control everything around, then maybe I won't get hurt like I was hurt when I was 5. Then maybe I won't get hurt like I was hurt when I was 10. Maybe I won't get heartbroken again like when my lover left me and that was devastating. So this way I can be in control and not love too much and not open too much and not make the same mistake. And so the need for control is really a well-intended strategy. The need for control is really a positive intention. It just leads to a very limited life, right? And so often we end up trying to control our life. And in an effort to control our life, we don't realize we're limiting our life. And we impose our limited ego's idea on how we think life should be and who we think we should be and how we think a relationship should be and how we think things should unfold. But because it's coming from the ego, we're not able to see the whole picture of what is seeking to happen. It's like, it should be this way. It should be that way. Life's got to be this way, rather than saying, what is life showing me? What is life revealing to me? And so part of surrender is a letting go to allow life to show us and to become a follower, obedient, to allow this intelligence that has been around for billions of years to guide us. You and I, we've been around 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Maybe someone listening to the podcast is 100 years old. But compared to 13.5, however many billions of years that the planet has been around, it's nothing. Yeah. And so somehow we trust Siri more than we trust our soul. How do we trust Siri more than we trust our soul? Siri says turn left. We don't question. We turn left. Siri could be saying, drive off of that bridge. We drive off of that bridge. We don't question. But the moment our soul says, write that book, launch that podcast, launch that project, launch that business, we start questioning. I don't know how, who, when, which, how. I don't have enough. All of a sudden, we start doubting. And so, yes, allowing life to lead you rather than needing to have it all figured out. There's this illusion that we need to have it all figured out and know where we're going in order to get there. And the truth is, that's not the case. If we all look at the best things, here's an experiment. If you look at the best things that have happened to you in life, meeting that person, falling in love with your soulmate, did you plan it?
Absolutely not.
Most, like very rarely did we say, okay, let me take my journal. On this date, I'm going to walk into Starbucks, coffee shop, and my soulmate will be there at 11 a.m. It just happened in the process of living life in ways you could not have planned, just in the process of living. And to me, if the best things happen when we didn't plan, then I'm not saying don't plan. I'm just saying we shouldn't get attached. And here's the element of surrender. We shouldn't get attached to our goal. We shouldn't get attached to the plan. We shouldn't get attached because in our attachment, which is creating from the ego, we end up putting limitations on life. It's got to be this way. My soulmate has to look like this. It's got to be like this. Life has to unfold like this. I have to be like this. And the truth is, life is unlimited. And so surrender, just I think to set the context for the conversation, there are so many misconceptions that we have about surrender in our culture today. This idea that surrender is weak, surrender is passive, that surrender is giving up, that surrender is waving the white flag, that surrender is means being a victim, being a doormat, means you're going to be left behind, means you're going to be taken advantage of, means you won't manifest your goals, your dreams and desires, that you're going to get less in life. And I'm actually saying, no, if you really understand the real essence of surrender, real surrender, what if you didn't get less, but what if you got more? Maybe not what you thought, but what if it was better than you thought? What if it was different? What if it was more aligned, more authentic, better than you could have imagined? And I think that's what surrender opens up, is that possibility. So for me, surrender is the real key to the next level of our lives. It's the real secret to manifestation. It's the password to freedom. And the challenge is we all want more magic, more bliss, more joy, but we don't want to surrender. But there's no next level without letting go and surrendering. And so the next level, whatever it is for us, requires the next level of us, which requires that we let go of everything and everyone that is no longer aligned with our true nature, with who we are today. The challenge is, as human beings, as egos, we tend to hold on to that which is no longer aligned, out of comfort, out of self-preservation, out of familiarity, and we end up blocking our blessings. And so surrender is a letting go. It is a releasing. It is a letting go of control, or I should say the illusion that we are in control in the first place. It is a letting go of trying to force and manipulate life to fit a limited concept and idea. It is a taking the limitations off and being available and being open. And so the old paradigm of living and creating and manifesting is all about, you got to know what you want, got to be in control, make it happen. You make it happen and know what you want. The challenge is you can create that way, but I found that it can often be limited. It will be limited, because when you create from the ego is limited and limited to the conditioning of the past.
Right.
And so when you create from the ego, you might create amazing things, but it will be limited. So for me, the question isn't just, what do I want? Because you might attain what you thought you wanted, or everything that you thought you wanted, only to reach that point where you look around and you realize, wait a second, maybe what I thought I wanted was not what I really wanted. It was just what I thought I wanted based on who I thought I am. And so I think for me, there's a different question or a bigger game to be played in the idea of surrender. And that game becomes, what is it that life is seeking to express through me? What is it that the universe is seeking to manifest through me? What is it that God is seeking to create through me? What is it that what is the deeper impulse of what my soul is seeking to express? Because when you can kind of feel what is seeking to unfold, that is the flow, right? You talk about flow. That's the real flow. You don't have to make the flow. No different than Laird Hamilton or Kelly Slater going to the ocean with a fire hose saying, we're going to make some waves. The waves are the waves. So if you look at any great surfer, they don't make the waves happen. They go into the ocean with the surfboard and they kind of lie there and they catch the wave. And so for me, it's about feeling, what is it that life is seeking to manifest, and to feel the deepest impulse of what is seeking to emerge and aligning with the deepest truth of your being. Then you're in the flow that is the flow of nature, the flow of life, the flow of God, the flow of the universe. Then you can align your personality and your ego and your mind and your planning and your strategy and your marketing in sync with what is true, in sync with what is really in the flow of nature. And that's when you can commit fully, work hard, give 100%. But now you're working in flow, not against the flow. And the key is to not be attached to the outcome.
Yeah, and that is such a great description of the flow part of it, because I've always thought of, like, when you're trying to get beyond the fear part of it.
Yes.
I mean, getting that flow is not forcing it. It's not forcing flow and forcing things to happen. It's removing obstacles. Yeah. It's just like a river flowing. I mean, like if it's touch a bunch of trees or rocks in there, it's going to have a lot of rapids and a lot of just all that junk. But if you remove those obstacles, it flows.
Yes.
And so I love your perspective on on the idea of that surrender is not limiting ourselves by the world having to be like a certain way for us to feel happy or successful or anything like that. It's
really unlimiting yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we talk about flow. Let's take it out of the realm of the spiritual for a moment. I sometimes give an analogy just to make it very real and human. Mm-hmm. If everyone listening, because some folks listening might still think, well, surrender does it really work? I don't know. It's just for the sort of spiritual folks on this podcast and the yogis in the Himalayas and the Dalai Lama types, right? But if you think about this, surrender is really hardwired into our physiology. It's the nature. You breathe in, and what do? You breathe out. You breathe in, you breathe out. That's a surrender. It's hardwired into your physiology. And the truth is, if you think about your most blissful, doesn't even have to be most blissful, but your most blissful sexual experience. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be spiritual and believe, read self-help books. We've all had a beautiful sexual experience, and we all, for the most part, love the experience of the sexual experience with our lover. It's usually ecstatic, blissful, pleasurable in some way. If you think about a pleasurable, blissful sexual encounter with your lover, where you were exchanging energy and you were in the flow of energy with your lover, it was, wow, it was ecstatic. Why do we crave it so much? What makes it so blissful? If you really think about it, folks, was it because you came to the sexual encounter with an iPad and a business plan of how this whole experience was going to go down, that you wrote it and you scripted it out in total control? Like, okay, honey, we're gonna make love for about 22 minutes today, and the first minute you're going to kiss me 17 times, but no more. The next minute I'm going to turn a certain way, then you're going to do that, and you're going to go 90 degrees on the bed. It's like, is that why it was blissful? No. What made it blissful is precisely because you surrendered. Mm-hmm. You let go of control. You didn't know what was going to happen the next moment and what your lover was going to do and what you were going to do. I mean, if we had sex and it was exactly the same script every day for the next 40 years, we would just shoot up. We would be celibate, bottom line.
Right.
And so what makes it so blissful?
Yeah.
Is the surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not signing any contract that says that 22 minutes. That's no, I'm kidding. That's such a great point. And then, so, we're talking about a lot about the idea of surrendering and letting go. And it sounds like those two are intertwined. Yes. Like, so are they related? Yes. Are they the same thing?
Yeah. I use them interchangeably in terms of letting go and surrendering, Gotcha. But what I want people to understand is surrender doesn't mean doing nothing. Because sometimes there's an idea, surrender, what, you just sit there and you don't take action. You just sit there and just, no, sit there and, I'm going with the flow. And so I'm just going to eat the fourth cup of Haagen-Dazs because it's just how I feel in the flow. No, that's called being a slave to your urges and your addictions. And I'm just going with the flow. So I just have this urge to just, I'm attracted to this woman. And so even though I'm married, I'm just going to go with the flow. That's not surrender. That is just being a slave. Mm-hmm. And so what people have to understand is that surrender is responsibility. Surrender is a deeper commitment to a deeper commitment. Let's put it. It's a deeper commitment to a deeper commitment, not just following the fleeting mood of the moment, And so sometimes surrender might mean saying no to something you really want to do because it's not truly aligned and authentic. And in the real flow, it's in the superficial flow, but it's not in the real flow. It might mean saying no to cheating on your wife because you just feel in the mood, and saying, no, I have a deeper commitment to loving and surrendering to love and maturing and expanding and having a deeper it might mean saying no to the tub of Haagen-Dazs at midnight because you have a deeper commitment to health and your health goals. It might mean, as an example, I wrote 2 best-selling books. I hate writing. I don't like the process of writing, but I had to sit my ass down and write. I never felt in the flow. I never felt in the mood. If I just waited for the mood to just descend, then I would have surrendered to being on my couch or being in the ocean somewhere, and I would never have written the book. But the deeper surrender was, I have a deeper commitment to inspire people. There's a deeper commitment that my book impacts people. So I had to surrender to that and move through my own resistances to writing the book. And that took intention, dedication, discipline, and action. And so just to make clear that surrender might mean sometimes doing things that you don't want to do or doing things that you don't feel like doing because you're committed to something bigger than the current mood.
I like that. I like that. And by the way, I like the fact that the book that you wrote, The Magic Surrender, was written while you yourself were surrendering to the process. I mean,
this was not the book I wanted to write.
Right.
This was not the book I felt like writing. I wanted to write a completely different book.
Can you expand on that a little bit? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, look, my first book, You Are the One, was a national bestseller, did very well. And so I thought, now I can be intelligent, and I studied the book market, and you see all these sexy titles, these books coming out, right? The subtle art of not giving an F, and was the magical art of tidying up, Kondo, and so I thought I'm gonna take elements from all of these, the subtle art of the magical something, and put together this sort of a book that my audience would want, a book that the publishers would want, a book that would sell, and I came up with an entire whiteboard of ideas, a strategy. Basically, I had a strategy session for a month with one of my editors and came up with 75 ideas of books that I thought would be really great. And the truth is, none of those, they were all great ideas, but none of those I could look you in the eyes and say, this is the book. They felt like, kind of want to say gimmicks, but they felt like I was trying to make something into something that wasn't. The only word that felt aligned, and the key is alignment. If you are not in alignment, things don't flow. If you're not in integrity with your soul and yourself, things don't flow. And this is, I think, often why we end up getting stuck in life and not following through, because we are not in the flow of our own rhythm, our own truth, our own nature, our own selves. And so the only word that really resonated was the word surrender. And that's when I thought, oh shit, man, that's the damn book. And I resisted it for a while. I'm like, oh man, the people want to read about surrender. We kind of know we should do it, but we run away from it because, the ego is afraid of surrendering, because surrender for the ego feels like a death. And so I had to surrender to the book about surrender. And I felt like this was the book that was seeking to be written. And it had a soul of its own. And so when I surrendered, that's when things unfolded and everything made sense about my life.
Yeah, and I'll say that's I like the definition where you're talking about surrender, and you surrendering to the right things, the things that have the bigger, the bigger meaning to you, the alignment with the soul. That's how kind of it sounds like that's like kind of the guiding force behind how you surrender. Is it aligned with your soul's calling?
Yes. Is it aligned? Yes. Is this true? If you look at people like Gandhi, I look at the great ones: Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, Mandela, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali. These were not weak people.
Right.
These were not guys that just sat on the couch and did nothing. They worked. They impacted. They were courageous. They created movements that moved humanity for decades. If you look at someone like Gandhi, he was a lawyer, a successful lawyer that then caught a vision. He could have stayed on his track. No, I'm just going to have my life as a lawyer with my family. But he had to surrender. All of these folks have to surrender themselves to a vision that was bigger than themselves, and maybe not even a vision that they had for themselves, but it was something that came through them. And so what if he didn't surrender to that vision? he would still be a lawyer. He may have made a ton of money. We would not know him. The world would be different.
Mm-hmm.
The world would have been radically different. Even for business people, I'm going to give a kind of, I don't know if it's controversial, but, Elon Musk, the dude surrendered. You can love him or hate him, say whatever you want. But here's an example, because people might say in business, well, how to surrender? It's for the soft yoke. No. Here's a dude, arguably the richest man on the planet now. Made, was it $200 million with PayPal?
Yeah.
Most of us would sail off into the sunset and buy an island and kind of disappear and chill out. Most of us would do that and probably save most of that money. Here's a guy he had a calling.
Mm-hmm.
Solar City, Tesla, SpaceX, put all of his money, every penny, into the vision that he had. That is a form of surrender.
Yeah.
Love him or hate him, that's a different conversation. But here's a guy who surrendered to the calling that was unfolding through him. And look what happened and the reward, And so I believe that we all have a dream. We all have a vision. The thing is, we think we choose our vision, but I believe that the vision that you have, it chooses you because you are the perfect person to fulfill that vision. Many times we resist that vision. So part of it, the surrender is surrendering to the calling that life is seeking to unfold. And I think whenever these great ones, and to me, these great ones weren't special. They just decided to surrender. They were ordinary people that decided to surrender in an extraordinary way. And in that surrender, they transcended their human limitations and tapped into another dimension of life. And life began to manifest through them. Life began to speak through them and use Mandela, and life began to express. And that's where the miracles happened.
Wow.
It was life manifesting and living and expressing through them that they were able to do. They were able to achieve and create far beyond that they could have done with their own personal power.
So when you talk about Elon Musk, and Gandhi, that they surrendered to this, to these callings,
yes.
right? And but they gave up certain things,
Yes.
Elon Musk gave up, or, at least at the time, gave up $200 million to put into SpaceX and Tesla, all this stuff. Gandhi gave up his career as a lawyer. Does surrender equal, or is it sacrifice?
Well, there's a difference between sacrifice.
Yeah.
A caterpillar crawling on the floor has to give up being the caterpillar if it wants to turn into the butterfly.
Yeah.
You cannot put new wine into old wineskins. Mm-hmm. The next level of your life requires the next level of you, which requires that you give up or let go and transcend who you were before. Mm-hmm. And so you can't manifest the new being the old. If you want to call that letting go, if you want to call that surrender, if you want to call that giving up, if you want to call that sacrifice, sure. But it's how you look at it. If you want to be healthy, if you want to have a six-pack, if you want to be in athletic condition, you may have to sacrifice. If you want to look at it as a sacrifice. But sacrifice tends to be when you're looking at the negative, not just the possibility. Like for me, health is non-negotiable. So I wake myself up every single day, 7 days a week. People say, oh, you're so lucky to be healthy. You're so genetically blessed. No, I wake myself up 7 days a week. Yeah. Doesn't matter what the time. And I exercise. I don't feel like it. Is it a sacrifice? Sure. It's a bit of a sacrifice because when my friends are sleeping and they're sleeping in and they're chilling out, and I have to catch a flight at 7 a.m. So I wake up at 3:30 to exercise. Sure, it's a sacrifice. But the reward of health and vitality and vibrancy and energy that I feel, the reward is so much more. So in order to have a tree, you've got to, you have to let go of the seed. You can't be like, I want this tree to sprout, but I'm not willing to let go of the seed I have. You have to let go of the seed in order for the tree to sprout, and you have to water it every day. And so, It takes discipline. It takes devotion. It does take sacrifice. You have to look, freedom isn't free.
Mm-hmm.
It requires that you let go of what is no longer aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Gandhi had to let go of the life that he thought was. Mother Teresa had to let go of the life she thought was. The challenge is many of us, we're trying to hold on to the life that we had, and we're praying and affirming and trying to manifest a new life. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. Many of us is like, we're in relationships that we know are not right. Toxic, abusive, just not aligned relationship. And we're praying, God, please send me my soulmate. Doesn't work that way. You've got to let go of what is not aligned so that you can make the space. Some of us, God, the universe, whatever you believe, folks, God is trying to bless you. But there's no room in your life for the blessings to enter.
Mm-hmm.
Your life is so cluttered with things that are not vibrationally aligned. So part of surrender is a letting go, is a releasing, is a making space. If we want to call that a sacrifice, yeah, it's sacrificing the lesser for the more.
I like how you put that because, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking like when you're talking about the ego and our ego's control over us or our ego's desire to control, that maybe the ego's terminology is to sacrifice. But the other word that I really love that you use is transcendence. And it may be like that very well that thing that we're quote unquote sacrificing or letting go of is the thing we need to transcend to the next level.
For sure. You cannot manifest the next level holding on to the old. And so I would invite everyone to think about what is it that is no longer a vibrational match? Who is it that is no longer a vibrational match? What patterns inside of me do I need to release and let go of so that I can move into the next level of my life? You cannot manifest the next level being the old version of yourself. And there are certain patterns, certain ways of being, certain addictions that can't go with you to the next level, that will have to be released and let go of.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, okay? I remember speaking to an old client of mine who felt a calling to be a coach and impact people. But she was smoking marijuana a lot and kind of drinking quite a bit. And, it was a thing that she had that she liked to do, that she kept saying, it's not really impacting me because I'm not an alcoholic and I could give up marijuana if I wanted. And, and yet deep down, what she was not really acknowledging that she began to acknowledge was her substance use, even though it wasn't debilitating, it was dulling and numbing her chi, her vibration, her sensory sensitive perception, her feeling, her subtle connection to the divine. It was numbing that inner connection that for her to go to the next level of intuition and alignment, she would have to really connect more deeply. And so what she had to realize was these crutches were inhibiting her evolution. These kind of subtle crutches were slowing down her vibratory frequency from rising to that next level. And it was hard to acknowledge. So did she have to let go and sacrifice? Yeah, if she wanted to move to that next level.
Yeah.
So the truth is, life, we have to choose. We have to choose, but here's the thing. And here's the truth that people don't want to hear. Because self-help books will sell you a bunch of BS in order to make you feel good and sell books. You can have everything you want. You cannot have everything you want all at once. You cannot eat 7,000 donuts, 14 milkshakes a day. Left to my own devices, Adam, I'd be eating donuts. I'd be eating Haagen-Dazs, cookies and cream, mint chocolate chip. I'd be having the bacon. I'd be having chocolate chip cookies. I'd be having croissants every day.
Amen.
But I wouldn't be healthy.
Right.
That's just the fact,
So
and so the truth is, You will have to make choices. And the truth is, not everybody in this lifetime is going to fulfill their potential.
Mm-hmm.
That is the truth. Most people will not fulfill their potential. Let me repeat. Most people will not fulfill their potential in this lifetime because most people are not willing to make the choices and make certain sacrifices. Everybody wants to be like Jesus. Everybody wants to be like Bruce Lee. Everybody wants to be like Gandhi, but very few people are willing to do what Gandhi did. And very few people are willing to do what Mother Teresa did. But they were just showing us what's possible. And so I think what we have to decide is, will we fulfill our potential in this lifetime? It's why we incarnated. It's why we were born. So we have to do it.
Yeah.
And it's the choice that we have, but it will require some sacrifice and letting go.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because Jesus, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, they all asked those questions, which seemed so simple at the time, which was, what are you willing to give up to live this life?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And you said, and maybe that touches on, the honesty that you share about too, because you talk about the importance of the honesty, about being honest and as a tool for, is that part of the surrender process? Is that?
Yeah. I think if people are wondering, well, where do I begin with surrender? I think one place people can begin is by being really honest with themselves. Or one of the ways we stay stuck and resist, or the ego resists, is through denial. The ego is a collection of belief systems that we hold onto and identify as me. Ego is a process of identification. And so the ego doesn't want to change. Ego doesn't want to question. The ego doesn't want to tell the truth, because telling the truth and questioning oneself for the ego requires letting go, it feels like a death.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the strategies of the ego is denial and lying. And some of the lies that we tell ourselves are not even like intentional. We've just been conditioned to lie to ourselves about how we feel. Oh, I feel fine. Oh, the fact that dad wasn't around, I don't care. It didn't hurt me when I was young. I didn't need him. I don't need anybody. I don't need anybody's help. I don't care. And so we've learned to suppress, lie to ourselves, suppress our feelings as a way of functioning and surviving.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so this is why we learn to lie. We learn also to develop a role, a mask, a persona, to become who we think we need to be in order to get love, validation, approval. Oh, when I'm a certain way, dad loves me. Oh, I'm going to just pretend to be that person and wear that role and be the nice guy, be the nice girl, be the responsible one, be the independent one, be the caretaker, because the more I do that, the more love I get and the more that gets reinforced by life. Meanwhile, I'm betraying parts of myself in order to get that love, validation, and approval.
Mm-hmm.
So we've learned to lie about who we are to be loved by the world. And we wonder why we're not happy, because a part of us, the real essence of what we are, we have denied. And so I think as a beginning point of surrender, we have to be willing to tell the truth. And we have to be willing. And so we stay in relationships that we know are not aligned. We work jobs that we hate. We betray ourselves to get love, validation, and approval, and wonder why we're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
I think is obvious when we really look at it. So I think if we can just start with the question, okay, what lies am I telling myself? What lies am I telling myself? And have the courage to be honest. And we have to want the truth more than we want what we have. We have to want the truth more than we want what we think we want. We have to want to be free more than we want what we have, because there is no transformation without truth. So what lies am I telling myself? What am I pretending to not know? And what is it costing me? What are the lies costing me? And I tell people that you can just take the pressure off of yourself for having to even take any action. Because sometimes the fear of the consequence of telling the truth disconnects us. So it might just sound like, okay, I hate my job. You don't have to leave your job, but just tell the truth. I hate my job. I'm not in love with my wife. You don't have to leave, but just be honest, because that begins a process. I have an alcohol problem. No judgment. Let's just start. You can't change something, shift something, if you're not acknowledging where you're at. And so surrender is to surrender to the truth of where you're at right now. in this moment. Not stay there, but just acknowledge this is where I'm at. And that begins the process.
So the process begins with being honest. And I love that. There's a lot of freedom in the idea that you don't have to make any changes immediately, right? Yeah. You just have to acknowledge the truth without judgment.
No judgment.
That without judgment part sounds really important. So we're not shaming ourselves, right? We're just acknowledging that this is
where I'm at in this moment.
Yeah.
Then you can deal with it. But it's like if you want to get from LA to Bali, but you're pretending that you're in Alabama. How do you get there?
You'll end up in the Pacific Ocean.
You'll end up, you end up somewhere, you end up in, freaking Greenland, right?
Right.
So we have to be willing to be honest about this is where I'm at now. Doesn't mean this is where I'm going to end up, but this is where I'm at. Based on where I'm at, let me accept where I'm at. Let me surrender to where I'm at. Let me learn from this and let me start. Without that self-honesty, there is no surrender and transformation.
That's incredible. And you brought up Bali, and that brings up a very good segue into a retreat that you have that you wanted to promote. Yeah. So the Boundless Bliss in Bali. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I would say if you've been listening and you've been inspired in some way, maybe something has been stirred in your soul. Maybe you feel that you've been put on the planet for a purpose that is bigger than yourself, to make a difference, a contribution, to make a mark in some way. Maybe you're tired of just reading and you're ready to heal and transform and let go of conditioning to connect with your voice, with your power, and share those gifts with the world. Twice a year for the last 11 to 12 years, twice a year I have done a very special event to Bali. It's called Boundless Bliss, the Bali Breakthrough Experience. It's 12 days, an experiential immersion seminar training without walls that is designed to uncondition you and free you of your limited conditioning and really help you connect to your power. And so the last 12 years, I've done 21 of these journeys. This December, the 5th through the 16th, this year, 2023, I'm going to do the final Bali event that I ever do. I'll do other events, but this is the final time I'm going to do the Bali event. It's going to be Boundless Bliss Bali number 22. Wow. And so I would say we only take 18 people. If you're feeling a calling, if you're feeling inspired, if you feel ready for the next level of your life for real, you can find out more. Just go to www.boundlessblissbali.com. That's boundlessblissbali.com. Watch the video, read the website, and apply. There's an application process. We have a pretty rigorous screening process because we really want to make sure. I was told when I created this process 11 years ago, 12 years ago, that there were souls around the world that when they heard about this journey would feel a sense of destiny. They would feel a knowing and they would come. I didn't think anyone was going to come on the journey. And 21 journeys later, we've had people from all walks of life, everyone from billionaires and celebrities and entrepreneurs and athletes and visionaries and you name it, that have gone on this journey. And so, it's my highest level work. And so you can find out more. BoundlessBlissBali.com, December the 5th through the 16th.
Yeah. And if you're feeling that calling in your heart, in your soul, that that would be something in your destiny, then go to that website, go check it out. And Kute, I mean, this has been amazing. And if you're listening to this and you this is the first time you're hearing the name Kute Blackson, I guarantee it won't be the last because you're on a rocket ship, my friend. And where else can people find you? So Boundless Bliss Bali, how can they connect with you?
BoundlessBlissBali.com, Instagram, Kute Blackson, just say hi. Facebook, Kute Love Now, say hi there. The book, The Magic of Surrender, you can get it on Amazon. My podcast, my weekly podcast is called Soul Talk, which is on iTunes and Spotify and anywhere podcasts are available.
Yeah. And that's a great show too, by the way. After you listen to this, go listen to that. And Kute, thank you so much for being here. This was an honor to talk to you. I really appreciate it. And to everyone else out there listening, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow, and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.